Do you, by chance, have another copy of this? This staple's kind of messed up.
Oh, really? I don't, but
It's not a big deal, but...
Renata did.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. Why don't we just switch? That's fine. That way, you're going to keep it longer than...
Thank you.
Cool. So, yeah, my name is Bo Lee, and I'm the director of the NYC Guitar Group. The NYC Guitar Group is the largest guitar network in New York City. Over 4,800 guitarists. And so we have just so much cool stuff going on with the guitar. Music is a really awesome art form. It's cool. I love videography right now. That's what I'm into, like film type of thing, which is a whole different art form, but music is just an awesome, awesome art form. And so at the NYC Guitar Group, we teach really cool classes. We do workshops like this. We've got I think 8 workshops coming up. So definitely make sure you stay in touch with what's going on in on the meetup page. Okay. So if you're interested, I do teach guitar lessons. There's group lessons that take place here: guitar, intermediate, and advanced. And I'm just going to make my pitch right now. And I also do one-on-one lessons in downtown Brooklyn, right by the Atlantic Terminal. So that said, let's go. Page 2 is a list that I made of 12 big goals that people are going to want to learn as they're advancing in their guitar playing. Okay, and I broke it down into little tiny pieces so you can kind of see what they were. Okay, I'll kind of explain, just kind of show you real quick some of these things. So we've got ditties. You see ditties? Ditty is a word that I made up, and it has to do with when you're playing chords. See what I'm doing? I'm kind of throwing in like little notes in between the chords. This is something that you want to learn because you'll find even maybe low intermediate level, you're going to kind of max out like, okay, I'm playing chords, I'm playing rhythm. I mean, it's a little boring now, right? I mean, you get good at that pretty quick a few months into playing, right? So how do you add the different notes, that work with these chords? Okay, what's the trick? You've got to learn music theory. Music theory is super important, and what music theory is that there are 12 different notes that exist. Did you know that? There are 12 notes that exist. C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C, right? 12 different notes, and in a key, songs are written in like the key of G, or the key of A, or the key of B. Do you guys know what that means when we're talking about a key? Here's what it means. You guys know this, right? This song? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's a major scale. Okay? C major scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It starts in a C note, and what note does it end on? C. So we don't count those notes twice. That means there's 7 different notes in a key. Is that true? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? If there are 7 notes that fit in a key, how many notes don't fit in a key? If there's 12 notes in total? 5. There are 5 notes that are completely out. And so what you need to do, if you want to learn to do, let's say, guitar soloing, dude, I had that guitar.
Yeah?
I used to have that guitar. Except mine wasn't shiny, mine was like dull. But I used to have that, yeah. Yeah. So, anyways. So you're going to need to learn your scales. And what scales are is essentially they're patterns that show you how to play all the notes that fit in a particular key. All right? And I'm going to teach you them. Go ahead and go to page 4 right now. This is called your pentatonic scale. Most people learn the pentatonic scale wrong. They learn one section of it, one little part of it, and someone tells them that that's the pentatonic scale. That's not. Okay? Pentatonic scale, what pattern did you just play? Can you show me the pattern that you just played? Okay, good. So that's the first section. Exactly. Most people learn one little pattern and they think they know the pentatonic scale. Now, can you see that? What you want to do is you want to think about the pentatonic scale, and all these notes here are in the key of G. You want to think about it in little sections. So I broke it down for you. Look at this next page. Ready? That's the first section. That's the second section. There's the next one. There's the next one. There's basically 5 different patterns. You see what I'm saying? And so let me show you the first pattern. First pattern was what this fellow was playing over there, right? Okay? Now, if you learn theory, you could look at a song and you could figure out what key that song is in. And if you can figure out what key that song is in, you can set your scales up to fall into that key. Can someone play me a chord progression in the key of G? So that would be like G, C, D, E minor. Can you play some chords? I can't really hear you because you're electric. Maybe one of the acoustics?
G, C.
Yeah, G, C, D, E minor. Can you play some, just strum some chords? Pauline, do you feel comfortable with that? Why don't you try it? See what I'm doing? How is it that every one of those notes, all I was doing was playing that first section pattern. How did all those notes sound fine? I just was playing, just improvising on those notes. Because that pattern shows you how to play the notes in the key of G. Okay? Now, there are 5 patterns, and I want you to see the way that they link together. You see this? I said that's the first pattern. You see that? Second pattern is like right there. Third pattern is like, I don't know how to show you, like right there. The next pattern is right there, and the last pattern is like that. And they link together, and so all of those circles right there are in the key of G. And if you hit any of those circles while someone's playing chords in the key of G, they will all sound good. Now, what happens if someone is playing chords in the key of G sharp? All the chords have to be in the key of G sharp, and what do you do with the pattern? Does it change? All you do is shift it. That's all you do is shift it that way one fret, and it would be into the key of G sharp. So what you need to do in the advanced level is you would want to memorize pattern 1, section 2, all the sections, okay? And eventually what you could do is you could do a little bit of soloing in the first section. You know, let's say this song's in the key of G, you know? And we go up in the second section. Next one. Next one. Next one. You see what I'm doing? All those notes are in the key of what? G. Now, because I'm following the pattern exactly like I showed you. And so as long as you stay on that pattern, it's going to be in the key of G. All right? And so I played the first section, second section, next one, and next one. And it doesn't matter which one I'm playing in because they're all in the key of G, right? So if Pauline played a chord progression again, I could solo on any of those sections and it would sound good. You try it one more time, okay? I'm going to start on this top one. See what I'm doing? So I'm soloing a little bit in one section, then sliding to the next one whenever I feel like it, sliding to the next one whenever I feel like it. That is a scale that you need to learn if you want to get into the advanced level. Okay? So what you would do to practice is you would sit there every day and you would start to practice to get pretty fast. And you'd want to be able to go down and back in less than 4 seconds. In the advanced level, with my advanced students, I say under 3 seconds. Okay? So you want to get very fast at that with all the sections. Then, what you want to do is you want to begin to learn to solo on that pentatonic scale, but do 1-string solos. Okay, so now instead of thinking about them in little pieces, what you would do is you would look at this and you would start to learn to solo on 1 string at a time. Okay, so at the beginning of each practice session, you may do something like this. You might just practice soloing on this string for 30 seconds, and then 30 seconds on the next string, 30 seconds on the next string. This way, you learn to go this way, this way, this way, or this way. Okay? Now, what is the pentatonic scale? What does the word pent mean? 5. How many notes are there in a scale? How many different notes are there in a major scale? Right? Pentatonic scale only has 5 notes instead of 7. Okay? So, come over here for a second. Let me show you the major scale. Okay? So watch this, ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1 and 8 are the same. That's a major scale. Pentatonic is 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. What numbers did I miss? 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. 4 and 7. Okay? That's exactly it. 4 and 7 are left out of the pentatonic scale. When you do that, it sounds a little bluesy. Okay? So it can sound a little more rock or bluesy as far as solos go, but that's the only difference between pentatonic scale and major scale. Let's go ahead and sit back down. Now, I put the major scale in here too. In the advanced level, to be a professional player, you only need to learn 2 scales in your entire life. I don't care what anyone says, you don't have to learn any other scales.
Because you can just shift them up and down, is that why?
That's right. That's right. And these are perfectly useful scales. Now, keep your finger on page 4. Go to page 10. Look at page 4 and 10. Do they look similar?
Yeah, there's extra notes on this punch more.
Yes,
That's
it's
the
more notes.
only thing. Now, if we started here, and we call that the 1 note, which notes do you think would be different if I was going to count this way? Which notes would you think would be different between the major scale and pentatonic scale?
But they add the 4 and 7.
So let's watch. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that in the pentatonic scale? 4, 5, 6, 7. Is that note in the pentatonic scale? Now, if you look at the pentatonic scale, they're gone. You see what I'm saying? So the only difference between pentatonic scale and major scale are that the major scale puts back in the 4s and the 7s. Okay? So when we solo, when an advanced player solos, they will do some pentatonic scale and then they'll mix in major scale. And it's all on the key, right? It's just that major scale has a little different feel to it, okay? Listen to the difference, okay? Tell me if you think this is major scale or pentatonic scale. Pentatonic or major scale? Here's major scale. See? It's a little bit different feel, right? Pentatonic is a little more blues. Yeah. See, it's a little more like major scale and pentatonic scale are very, very, very different, but they can be played together. So when you do a guitar solo, you want to learn the 5 sections of the pentatonic scale. You know what I mean by sections, right? They kind of stack next to each other so that you can play the whole guitar neck. And then, when you master that, you want to go and learn the 5 sections of the major scale. Get them down. And then when you solo, just make sure you're in the right key. Make sense? Okay?
Can I ask you something though?
Yeah.
When you started to, like, for example, after you learned the G and had to move up to whatever to play a different key, was it hard for you to make that adjustment?
Yeah.
It is. It's kind
Yeah.
of awkward, right?
Yeah.
Because you're so used to playing it in a certain way, like
Right.
on a certain place, kind of thing.
Right. It's a little awkward,
Yeah.
but it's not as awkward as the first time you play the pentatonic
Okay.
scale, right? So it's fine.
Okay.
You just get used to it over time. So what I would recommend is when you're learning your scales, learn them in G.
Okay.
Just nail them in G. Take a few months and just knock them out of the ballpark in G. Then you can start to shift it around. No problem. Okay? So that's very important for you guys to learn both of those. Let me see how much. I just want to make sure I'm pacing it at the right time. Good. We got 35 minutes left.
Okay, my sort of question is, how do I, so we know this is in G, but is there something that will tell me for sure?
It's in G.
Where, that
Yeah.
it is in G?
So this is where we're going next.
Oh, okay.
So you have to learn theory. You're toast as a musician unless you nail theory. You're toast. I'm just telling you right now. You've got to be able to knock it out of the ballpark. So when I give you a chord progression, let's say like page 19. You're in trouble in the advanced level if you can't tell me every single one of those chord progressions what key they're in. Okay?
Well,
Yeah.
what determines the key of the chord progression?
Okay. So here's how it works. Okay, I typically teach this theory thing in a deep way because I think that there are cheats to learning theory quickly and there are ways to learn it in a deeper way that a true musician should understand it, right? So if we had extra time today, I would just take a whole half an hour and I would teach you guys music theory, which is it is the biggest investment you could make in your playing. The problem is online, there is a lot of nonsense that is just going to confuse you. And I know because I have students that come all the time that try to learn offline and they come and they're super confused. And it's worse off than if they didn't learn anything and I was teaching them from scratch. That's the problem. However, it is very logical, it is easy to learn, and what ends up happening, and I'm just gonna give you the cheat, I would typically take someone through page 17, which explains why certain chords fit. And I'll give you a brief, 3-minute overview, okay? Underneath here, there's basically 3 steps to music theory that you need to learn. Number 1 is how to find the notes in a key, okay? You see these numbers here? What you basically do is you'd start, let's say with the key of G, put a G underneath the 1. Write it down real quick if you have a pen. Put G underneath the 1. And you're going to follow whole steps all the way through here except where the little triangle things are. Those you're going to put a half step. Okay? So what happens is if you have G, what's a whole step from G? It goes to A. You skip G sharp and you go to A. Right? A underneath 2. You go a whole step to the 3rd, which would be B. Half step to the 4th, what's that? What's a half step from B? From C, you go whole step to the 5, D, whole step to the 6, E, whole step to the 7, F sharp, and then half step to the 8, which is G. Okay? That's the first part of music theory. So it's just figuring out the notes in a key. Okay? So every key follows the same pattern. There's always a half step between the 3rd and the 4th note, always a half step between the 7th and 8th note. Now the next part of music theory you need to learn is how to form a major chord, a minor chord, and a diminished chord. Let's come over to the piano real quick, okay? Alright, so there are 3 types of chords that we want to learn, and they're all played with 3 fingers if you're going to play it in the most simple way. Okay? So a major chord always follows the same pattern, okay? It's going to be 3 notes. And how many notes will there be between these 2 notes? 2 whole steps. Okay, so if I want to play C major chord, we go a whole step, skip that note, go a whole step. Skip that note, go another whole step. That's 2 whole steps. The second jump is going to be how far? 1.5, right? 1.5 steps. What's 1.5 steps from here? Right? So this is a half step. Anytime you have notes that are right next to each other, that's a half step. So from here to here is a whole step, and then 1.5. So this chord should be what? C, because it started on a C. What chord should that be?
C major.
Because we have 2 whole steps and 1.5. Every major chord in the world follows that. So if I went to an A, and want to play A major, I have to go up how far?
2 whole steps.
So that is 1 whole step, 2 whole steps. And then how far from here do I go? 1 whole step and then a half. A major. E major, is that 2 whole steps? There's 1 whole step, another whole step, there's 2 whole steps, and then is that 1.5? E major. Is that 2 whole steps and 1.5? Every major chord in the world follows that pattern. Now, minor chord is almost the same. It just flip-flops the spacing. So it's 1.5 steps, then 2. So if this is C major, to make it a C minor, there's 1.5 and 2 whole steps. See? Okay. This is D major. What do I do to make it a minor?
Index 1 down.
I'm just going to drop this half step. And now there's 1.5 steps and 2 whole steps. See how that works? Every minor chord in the world follows that same pattern. So you should be able to go online, get a chord chart, and actually go to the piano now and play it. Because you should be able to play every major chord in the world and every minor chord in the world using that pattern. Diminished chord is 1.5 steps, and then another 1.5 steps. Easy? Alright. So with that said, let's go to the third part of the music theory. So I'm giving you a brief overview, and you can dabble with it later, right? You can kind of...
You're also teaching a workshop on it too, in the near future, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think I saw it on the list.
Definitely come to any workshop where I'm teaching theory, because that is the biggest thing that you could ever possibly do for your playing.
Did you start out learning theory when you learned guitar?
No. No.
And then you
And I
realized
never
that
had a
was
really good guitar teacher either, which is a bummer because it slowed me down, but it made me have to go explore stuff. It took me years. So now I can take students, what would have taken me 10 years, I can get them there in like 3 months. It's so annoying. I wish I had a good teacher and I just didn't. You know, it's hard to find good teachers today. Okay, so the third part of music theory, I want you to write the notes in the key of G, right here. Okay? And here's how it works. There are 7 different notes in a key, right? There are also 7 different chords in a key, and you have to figure out, and this is answering your question, you have to figure out how to figure out those chords. The first chord in the key of G is some kind of G note. It's based off of the first note in the key. So it's either a G major chord, a G minor chord, or G diminished. How do you know which one it is? It's only one of them.
What, based on
Yes. So here's how you know which one fits. So in the key of G, the first chord is some kind of G. And whatever chord it is, all three of those notes in that chord have to land on notes in the scale of G. So which one would fit? G major, G minor, or G diminished? If you were to try it. Huh?
For a major G.
For the key of G.
The
Yeah.
key of G major.
Yes. The three notes in a G major chord are G, B, and D. Look on the scale. Does that fit? And you see it actually leapfrog notes, didn't it? 1, 3, 5. So if I went to a piano and I played a G major chord, this is GBD, is that chord in the key of G? It is because it uses notes in the key. If I use a G minor chord, it would have an A sharp note in there. Is that in the key of G? Do you have it written down? Do you have G? Yeah, if you write these down, right down there, then you can see.
Oh.
Yeah, if you write the key of G down there. Oh. Yeah, write the notes in the key of G down. Oh, you have it. Cool. You have it? Okay.
It's just,
So G major is the first chord in the key of G. The second chord in the key of G is based off of the second note in the key of G. What's the second note in the key of G? A. So it will be either A major, A minor, or A diminished. So you have to check and see which one of those fits on the G major scale. Which one would fit? Anyone know?
you're asking about the note A, if it fits on the G.
Well, we know A does.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is if we built a chord off of the second note in the key of G, either A major, A minor, or A diminished, which one of those three chords would fit on the G major scale?
Oh, A minor.
A minor would. So the second chord in the key of G is A minor. If you want to write a song in the key of G, you can use G major or A minor. What's the third chord in the key of G? There's my baby, look at that. Dude, hold on a second. Let me see if I can make her smile. She's so cute. Hi!
Sorry, being distracted. Oh, so cute.
I can't resist. Dude, I can't resist. Okay, so the third chord in the key of G will be built off of the third note in the key of G. It will be either G major, G minor, or G diminished. How do you know what chord it is? It has to fit on the G major scale. Now here's a trick. If you paid attention to the first chord and the second chord, they're leapfrogging notes. Okay? G major uses the 1, the 3, and the 5 note. A minor used what numbers? The 2, the 4, and the 6. The third chord in the key of G will use the third note, 5th note, and 7th note. And what chord does that end up being?
With the 7th note? With
The
third,
3.
fifth, and 7th?
Yeah. What chord would that be if we played those 3 notes together?
Oh, like F sharp diminished? Is that what you mean? Or
No, it would be some kind of B chord.
B minor.
It would be B minor. Yeah. Because the spacing between the B and the D is how far?
1.5.
1.5. And how far is it from D to F sharp?
1.5.
It should be 2 whole steps.
2 whole steps?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And what is that? What kind of chord is that then? If it's 1.5 steps and then 2 whole steps, it's a minor. Okay, if we had more time, we would get into it because this is confusing, right? But
Yeah.
if we had, let's say a half an hour, I could go slower and we could really break it down. But I put this here. Go to page 18. This is the results. If you were to go through all 7 chords and figure out all 7 chords in a key, this is the results. In the key of A, here's what you would have. A, B minor, C sharp minor, D, E, F sharp minor, G sharp diminished. A. So if you want to write a song in the key of A, those are your chords. And if you did this, if you went to the piano and you played each one of these chords, every chord would be made out of notes on the A major scale. Does that make sense? Okay. If you want to write a song in the key of B, look at the chords in the key of B. Or the key of C. Key of D. Now, here's what's interesting. Do you notice that all the one chords are what type of chord?
Major.
All the two chords are what? You see? And there's a pattern in every key. Now, what numbers are major? Check the time. We've got 20 minutes. Good. What number chords are major? 1, 4, 5. This is super important. 2, 3, 6. What chords are minor? Or 2, 3, 6 are minor, right? 7 is diminished, and half steps between the third and the fourth chord and the seventh and eighth chord. Okay? Now, watch this trick. Go like this with your hands. Go like that. All right? Imagine this is the 1 chord, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? Drop everything that is not a major chord. Think about it. 1 chord's major, right? 2 chords minor, drop it. 3 chords minor, drop it. 4 and 5 are major. 6 is
Okay, so it would be less.
minor. 7 is diminished. Okay, you like that? Ready? Now 1 and 8 are the same. Let's drop 8 because we don't want the same thing up twice. Now look at this. See the spacing? Now if I showed you a chord progression and you didn't know what key it's in, and you saw 3 major chords in that chord progression, one of them has to be the 1, one has to be the 4, and one has to be the 5. How can you figure out which one is the 1?
Well, if they're 2 next to each other, they're the 4 and 5.
That's exactly it. And so with this theory, you can figure out what key a song is in, and then you know what key to solo in. Okay, so watch. I have to go to the next page. You can test it. First chord progression, G, G, C, D. Do you see 3 major chords in it? Which one is the 1? Remember, 4 and 5 should be a whole step apart. So which one's the 4 and the 5?
C and D.
C and D is 4 and 5. It's in the key of G. So if someone's playing those chords, somebody needs to solo in the key of G. Look at the next one. C, F, G, A minor. What are the 3 major chords you see? C, F, and G, right? Which one's the 4 and the 5? Which one's the 1? That's in the key of C. So what you would need to do, remember that pattern that I showed you? That first pattern I showed you, right? That's in the key of G. Starts on a G note. If I move up to the C note and I play that, all those notes would fit with those chords. Interesting, right? What about the next one? D, E, A, F sharp minor. D, E, and A are the major chords. Which one's the 4 and the 5? D and E. Which one's the 1? A. It's in the key of A. You see what you're doing? So with that theory, boom, you can look at a chord progression, figure out what key it's in, right? Now this helps with transposing. Because if you see a song that has a lot of chords that you don't feel like playing, what you can do is figure out what key it's in, take a little pen and write the numbers above each chord, and then change them to the key you want to play in. That's called transposing, right? So we get fast at that eventually. And in the advanced level, you want to get fast at that using the capo. Now go to intermediate. Look at that first chord progression in intermediate. B minor A, B minor G. How many major chords do you see?
Just the 2.
But what do you know about the 2?
They're right next to each other.
They're a whole step apart, aren't they? So what numbers are they?
4 and 5.
So what we know is the 1 chord just isn't in the song. It's just a chord progression that's not using the 1 chord. So if G is the 4, A is the 5, what would B minor be? 6, and it happens to be minor. 6s are minor, right? What would the 7 be? The 6 and 7 are a whole step apart.
Oh, B minor is a 6.
So B,
C sharp.
C sharp, and what kind of chord is the 7 chord? Diminished. So if that's 7, C sharp diminished, what is the 8? It's a half step away. D. This song's in the key of D. See that? Isn't that cool? So that's intermediate, right? And so you can work your way through intermediate. Now let's look at advanced. What numbers were minor? Tell me what numbers were minor. 2, 3, 6. So look at this chord progression. B minor, E minor, F sharp minor, B minor. There's not even one major chord in there, but still you can figure out what key it's in. How do you do it?
It's 2, 3, and 6.
2, 3, and 6. So which one's a 2 and 3, and which one's a 6?
E minor, F sharp minor.
E minor is a 2, F sharp minor is a 3, B minor is a 6. What key is it in? If E minor is a 2, we just go back a whole step, right, to the 1. What is it?
D.
Boom, key of D. See that? So once you learn your scales, and you can start to shift them around to the keys that you want to be in, if you see someone playing the chords in a key, you can just look and figure out what chords they are, figure out what key it's in, and then you just align your scales to it, and you can just solo up and down the entire guitar.
So when you asking what key this is in, like you're looking for the major key.
Yes. Yes. Now, if someone says, I'm playing in the key of B minor, what do you do then? B minor is the exact same key as D. If someone ever says they're in a minor key, just think that's the 6. What is the 1? Do you understand? Did you understand that? If someone says I'm in the key of B minor, what you just need to do is think I'm in this. That's the 6 chord. What would the 1 be? B minor and D major have the exact same notes in it. The 6 chord and the 1. So if someone says I'm in the key of A minor, what key would you solo in? Think of A minor as a 6 and figure out what the 1 would be. 1 and 8 are the same, so you could just walk 6 up to 8.
C sharp. It's two steps? Wait, no, from 6 to 8. 6, E.
So A minor is 6.
A minor 6.
B diminished would be the 7 chord. And what would the 8 be? Half step.
Half step, C.
C. So if someone says, I'm playing in the key of A minor, just solo in C. Wow, right? It's a lot to think about. Now, you guys ready for this? Oh my gosh. So this next thing I made this morning, and I thought this would be useful, beginner, intermediate, advanced. It'll give you real-world examples of how you have to use your theory and use the capo. Have fun dabbling around with that a little bit. It's quite interesting.
Can I ask you something about, like, okay, you talk about being in a band and you're, solo versus rhythm, that sort of thing. And so say you're like interested in being like a James Taylor type.
Sure.
It's like, I guess singer-songwriters, what you'd call it, right?
Yeah.
And this style of playing, what would you call that, and how would that be different from what you're teaching right now? Or is it different?
Oh, you would use all this
All the
stuff.
same stuff.
Yeah, because James Taylor would write in keys. So in order to figure out what chords are available in a key, he would, he could use his theory to figure out what chords are available.
And creating the ditties that you kind of, right?
So now we're going to talk about that. So watch this. This is cool. All right, ready? So let's go. Let's go back to the pentatonic scale. Page 4. Look, from here to here is 1 octave. This is a G note. This is a G note. Got that? So what would happen is if you wanted to keep going further, you would take this section and put it down here again. Now you see how the shape of this is exactly like the shape of that? They start leapfrogging because you're a whole octave up and it repeats over. Now look, ready? See that pattern? this pattern would go underneath there. It's very important that you think about this. It's a very important concept. You see how this is all on the same line? This pattern would be underneath here. See these notes? They look just like those notes. So if you wanted to play this pattern down here, how would you play it? There you go. What's your name?
Kendall.
Kendall, okay. Look at Kendall. Watch his hand. Ready? Okay. In the key of G, this pattern ends up down there, and it just so happens that all these notes here can be played open. All right? So when I'm in the key of G, playing chords in the key of G, ready? Cool, yeah, we'll, cool. You want to just have a seat?
Yeah.
Cool. Ready? Watch this. G, E minor, C, D. And I can play, I know that in the pentatonic scale, there's a pattern that shows up down here in the key of G, and it looks like this. Except I don't really need to use this because they're just being played open. So when I solo, I can play, you know, a chord in the key of G. See, so I can pick notes on the pentatonic scale in the key of G, throw them in between my chords in the key of G, and it's all going to sound good together. Does that make sense? So I have a cool little exercise here that you guys can practice when you go home. Go to page 23. This is called the Ditty Wheel. It's an exercise I made up to help you guys practice strumming and playing notes in between the chords. So watch, you start up here with a G and you go around the pattern this way. So you do like a rhythm on this and then you play that lead, tablature. You guys know how to read tablature, right? The tablature uses notes in the key of G. Then we go to C, play some strumming on that, then play those notes. And go to C, play those notes. You see, and you work your way all the way around. And when it's all said and done, you're kind of playing this. Ready? It was played all the way around. Okay? So that's what's happening. You're playing chords in the key of G, and then you're hitting notes, like a little lead ditty, I call it, on notes in the key of G. And so it should fit. If you're playing chords in the key of G, playing notes in the key of G, it should lock in place and sound fantastic.
Can I ask, what's the difference between a solo and a fill lick and an embellishment? I mean, are they all the same thing?
A solo would be, you know, like an extended, you know, notes in the improvised notes in the key of G, or you could kind of like plan out the notes in the key of G. So it'd be extended. Whereas what I called a ditty is just a little tiny, like a few notes in between chords.
Right.
Yeah, so it's a little bit different. Okay? See how that works? Okay. So this is, I think, really helpful. Then you have this, the lead cue, and this is a little challenging. So you read it this way. You know that there are bar chords that are based off of the E string, bar chords that are based off of the A string, right? What this is saying is I want you to, you pick a key to play this in. So let's say the key of G. You would play a 6 chord in the key of G off the A string. This is where you need the theory, right? Which is an E minor chord. Playing E minor on the A string. And you're going to strum a little bit, and then the next chord you go to is the 3 chord on the A string, which would be, in the key of G, a B minor. Yeah, Kendall, that's right. But what you're going to have to do then is go to the 2 chord on the E string. So that would be an A minor. There you go. Okay? And then we go to the 6th chord on the E string, which has to be an E minor again. But on the 1st string. So 12th fret. 12th fret. There you go. You got it. So what we're doing is we're picking the chord, we're doing the number chords in the key of G, but what you have to do is you have to solo between these chords. So you play the chord, then you solo from this one down there, using the pentatonic scale in the key of G. So it would actually end up being like this. Is this complicated? A little bit, right? But it's doable. Just, you need to kind of think about it for a while. Ready? Here's the 6th chord in the key of G. That's the actual go. 3. So what I'm doing is I'm going to the chords, but I'm forced to solo my way from one chord all the way down to the next one while keeping timing. So I allow myself 2 measures from the beginning of one chord to the beginning of the next chord. See? So fairly complicated stuff, but I hope that today just kind of gave you a vision of where to go next and stuff to kind of dabble in and stuff to think about. Okay? Any questions?
How long have you been playing?
Since I was 14.
Really?
Yeah.
And did you practice every day for hours kind of thing?
Certain phases of my life, yeah. But you know what? I think that you can move along 10 times faster than I did. I mean, I see my students. I had a student that started from scratch, and 1.5 years later, he was good enough to be a guitar teacher.
Are you serious?
I'm totally serious. Totally serious. But it takes consistency and just clear understanding of what's going down and explanation, you know? If you get a good explanation, you'll move 10 times faster. So, yeah.
I think that's going to be Canada.
Huh?
I think that's going to be Canada.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, he sounds good. He sounds really good. So, yeah, I'm going to pass this around. If you're interested in learning more about beginner, intermediate, or advanced or private lessons, put your name down and we can get in touch with you. It's no commitment, but if you want to, we'd love to get in touch with you. I love what I do. I love teaching, and it's super fun to me to explain to people, these guitar concepts, because I know that if I was 14 and I had a teacher that could just unlock this stuff for me, I would have been as good as I am now back when I was in my early 20s. You know what I mean? Much, much sooner. So
Do you still feel like you're learning? Like, is there still more?
Oh yeah, totally,
More?
totally, yeah. But I mean, I think like to get to a professional level, there's a finite amount of things that you need to get, that you need to get down. And I think if you have natural ability, I mean, you could get there in a few years. I think conceptually you can learn a professional level of understanding in like 6 months.
Do you believe in the cage system of like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely. You can definitely use that, but there's a lot of more things too. It's all logical. It all makes a lot of sense. You had a question?
No, I was just going to make a comment.
Yeah.
Which is, if you don't have a gift, and you don't have a logical mind, you can struggle with it forever.
No.
As I have it.
No. You can get, anybody can get to a pretty decent player.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's little strategies that you need to learn, a way to learn how to play correct rhythm and stuff, and a lot of it's just.
Well, I mean, all the concepts you were showing today.
They should be really confusing to everybody in here right now.
I'm a total blind slave, for instance.
Yeah, it should be very confusing at this point. But what I'm saying is I'm showing like a direction of where you would want to go and explore more, right? So keep that in mind. There's a bunch of cool workshops coming up, and we do a beginning, intermediate, and guitar class, and we just build systematically every week. And all these concepts that we're learning, that we had to learn in 45 minutes today, we can actually break it down. People can ask questions. We can review it a little bit the next week, you know. And yeah, it works out really well. So
you can also
yeah.
take the classes have already started for the beginner, intermediate, and advanced, but we film everything and then we send it out to the classes. Some people are just taking the class by video. They just don't want to come into the city on a Saturday. So I just mail them the link to the private video that we have posted on YouTube. So anyway, there's different ways that people can catch up, or if you feel like you want to just hop in and join one of the classes right now too, we can definitely talk about that.
Yeah.
Also.
So things that you need to work on, go home, memorize the pentatonic scale, all 5 sections. Go memorize the major scale, all 5 sections of that. And then practice the ditty wheel. You can start to actually get used to strumming and throwing in those things. This, you need to wrestle with the concepts of.
Can you explain this again? Because I didn't quite understand how this works. Like,
So it's building off of your theory. So you pick a key to play it in. Let's just pick G. This says play your 6th chord in the key of G, but you're going to play it as a bar chord. Everything on here has to be played as a bar chord. So 6th chord is a bar chord, and it needs to be based off of the A string.
You mean that's where the root note would be?
Yes, that's where the root note would be. So that means you're going to go to your, 7th fret?
7th fret.
And play a minor bar chord. Because 6 chords are minor. You have to remember that, right? 6 chords minor. So strum that. Then you're going to solo in the key of G. So you have to think about what section of my pentatonic scale is near here, and I can solo there. Then you go to the 3 chord in the key of G with the root on the A string, which would be B minor.
B minor.
Okay, so go to your 6th chord. 6th chord?
Right.
Okay, right there. Your 5 would be a whole step down. Scoot it back a whole step. Your 4 would be another whole step. And your 3 would be a half step, because 3 and 4 are a half step apart. Make a minor chord. That's where your next chord is. You see what I'm saying? Okay, now you would strum on that, and then you would solo on your pentatonic scale, probably near where your hand is. Then you're going to switch to your E string. You're going to play your 2 chord on your E string. What chord is that? G is the 1. What's the 2? Whole step from G. A what? Major or minor? Twos are minor. Twos are minor. Yep. So you play a minor chord, and then you figure out what section is near here for me to solo in. You see what I'm saying? And that's how you can jam around on the different chords in a key and solo at the same time.
So the 2nd chord of the G key is A minor because it's 2 whole steps as opposed.
No, so it would.
Is it that? Is it because of that?
No, so here's, you can even just look here. So G is the 1 chord, that's 2. So it would be a minor because A, C, and E. If you look at the spacing between those chords, 1.5 steps from A to C, and then from C to E, 2 whole steps. Okay. Now I get that we cruised through that. And I honestly would expect just like a lot of the pieces not to be connected, but you at least got an overview, and you can go wrestle with the concept and find, see if you can, kind of work your way to some ideas, but everything's logical. So
I just want to ask you, as a player,
yeah,
let's say you're just jamming with a backing track on YouTube in E minor.
yeah.
Do you just stay in the standard E minor boxes, or will you follow the progression?
I would play E minor pentatonic I would play pentatonic in the key of G. Remember that? G. I would think of E minor as a 6. And I would go to the 1. I would solo in the key of G, pentatonic and major scale. And I would sometimes, when they would hit a certain chord, I would go and hit that note as I started off a little, lead. Because I think it sounds nice sometimes if you bounce off the root of the chord being played. Yeah.
Now, when you first start, I'm still doing it years later, but obviously there's that shape that everybody uses, the pentatonic shape, the 1/4, 1/3, 1/3.
Yeah. That's the one that I said everybody knows. But they don't know the whole pentatonic.
I know, and it's painful not to know it, so this is really helpful.
Good.
And just-
I'm glad, man.
Okay.
I'm glad.
But, this, again, the simplified way of soloing is to, work off those shapes that you do know, the first positional or stevia harmonics, that kind of stuff. But again, when there are other chords in that progression, do you then shift your
You don't need to.
scalar use?
No, you don't at all need to.
No?
You don't at all need to.
So,
You don't at all need to.
I was sort of like jazz changes where you would follow
Right.
the patterns of the chords, and I don't know how to do it.
Right.
Clearly, this is I don't know this stuff.
Yeah. So
But you
we couldn't get into everything today, but that's a lot of the big stuff. That if you learn the stuff that we talked about today, you could do chords and solo all the way up and down your neck. Bar chords and solo. You could play chords down here and do little ditties in between. You know what I mean? You could solo in any key, all the way up and down the neck, every note in that key that exists. So that's a lot of, it's a lot.
notes to work with.
Yeah? You could look at a chord progression, analyze what key it's in, and figure out what key it's in and solo in that key. There's a lot of stuff. If you go and you look at the things that we learned today and wrestle with them, and what happens is if you can get even 50% of the stuff in here, if that's all you can get that down, and by learning that, it might unlock some stuff to help you learn the other 50%. You know what I mean? Because the logic of it all would start to fall together. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Good stuff, guys. Really, really good. I think